And I'll call this meeting to order at this time and ask if there's any declaration of interest. Councillor Foster.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'll declare an interest for item D1, the labor relations in the closed session, as I have a relative that would be involved.
Very good. Thank you very much. Mr. Lamanna.
Through Madam Mayor, just for clarity, I believe Councillor Foster's declaration is during the special council meeting,
Yes.
not committee of the whole.
Declare now and for both, right?
Very good. Okay. Mr. Webster.
I would like to note that General Manager Molinari is absent with notice, and today we have Director Paul Newman, not the actor. Paul
Not the
Newman,
actor.
Director.
He's
So
just
we-
acting.
Okay.
Very good. He was practicing yesterday in the back seat, so very good. Thank you. We're down to community announcements, and I'll start on my left this time, if we have any community announcements. Councillor Foster? Nothing? Councillor Morton? Councillor Persichini?
No, I just, thank you.
Councillor Crone? None at this time. Councillor, I'd be surprised if you didn't have some. Councillor Roy DiClemente.
I never disappoint. I mentioned it yesterday, but I think it behooves announcing it once again. Late last week, the Sharon Temple announced that they were the successful recipient of a Trillium grant, and they have won a grant that will allow them to paint the exterior of the Sharon Temple as well as the interior of the first floor, and that rather significant award will go to a local company. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a couple here. One is talking about our Family Fun Day and Health and Active Living Fair at the Sports Complex on Family Day weekend on February. I know it's a little ways off, but sometimes people are trying to plan in advance. There's lots of indoor and outdoor fun-filled activities for families. This year new is a 3-on-3 pond hockey tournament, and registration must be in advance. As well with that, the Health and Active Living Fair is on in part and parcel with it, and it is held in partnership with the East Gwillimbury Soccer Club. We had them in front of us a week or two ago, and residents can come and visit with a variety of community organizations in East Gwillimbury about programs and opportunities to get involved and be active, and also live registration for East Gwillimbury camps and programs are going to be taking place. Residents who register in person at the event receive a $10 off any program over $200. So I think that's important. We'll continue to talk about this as we move into our first meeting in February as well. I know that I have been asked by a couple of people, and perhaps other members of council as well, about student employment for the summer. Yes, we hire a lot of students in the summertime. We hire students that are at post-secondary in some of their chosen fields, and they get an opportunity to work in the field with our qualified staff. We have roads laborers, and we also have, I believe, some grass cutting crews, and not to be forgotten by our day camps that are very, very popular, day camp directors, camp supervisors, counselors, and et cetera. So applications are being accepted until the 31st of January. So we're fairly close to it, so any young people that are looking for a job, we're encouraging them to get out and apply. We'd love to have you for the summer. So with that, yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I stepped in just as you were moving on to community announcements with respect to declarations of interest. Agenda item F1, Development Services Report P 2019-02. Just an advisement to committee. Previously, I've declared an interest when certain matters related to files 19T-08002, which is Yorkwood Homes, and 19T-08004, which is Sharon Vitt, have come before council. This was because their development activities at the time abutted my property on David Wilson Trail. At this time, the unregistered lands under the consideration are not adjacent to or near my property, and therefore I do not have a pecuniary interest, but I just wanted to advise council and committee. Thank you.
Now, Councillor Carruthers, did I ask you if you had any announcements? I did not ask you. I did ask you. Okay, I know that people were getting settled in. Okay, so we've looked after all of that. I have item D, which is presentations, and I have no noted presentations. Is that correct, Mr. Lamanna?
Correct, Madam Mayor?
Thank you. And item E for deputations. At this time, no deputations before us today.
And that is correct as well.
Thank you. And we are down to item F, and that's Development Services with Councillor Crone in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have one item on the agenda today. It's report entitled Extension of Draft Plan Approval Subdivisions Within the Community of Sharon, part of lots 8 to 11, concession 2. I throw it over to General Manager Ramuno. Do you have any comments you'd like to share with us?
To the chair, this is a pretty standard practice to review subdivisions that have been draft approved every 3 years. These subdivisions were approved back in 2010, and extensions were granted by council in 2013 and 2016. So the report's in front of council again, seeking council's direction to grant the extension for another 3 years. It really relates to the balance of the lands that don't have surfacing capacity. Until the surfacing capacity available, they won't be able to proceed to build out those subdivisions. So that's in essence the reason for the report.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I have a mover for this report, please? Councillor Morton? Okay. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Councillor Morton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Romano. Is there no easier way, rather than having these individuals that have this property coming back every 3 years, when we know that the water in that is not, that they do not have the capacity and probably won't for a number of years?
Through the chair, unfortunately, it is a requirement under the of the Act, and it's something that we've included in the original plan of subdivision. And it's not very onerous on the part of the applicant to come forward. It's a pretty simple request that they make, but we do require to bring the report in front of council for a formal council resolution to extend the draft plan approval period for another 3 years.
Okay. Councillor Roy DiClemente?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment. I would rather have a look at this every 3 years than be forced, as we have in the past, to build a subdivision that was approved 20 years ago, which we've seen a few times in this community. I'd rather have a look at it every 3 years so that we know that it's still current and viable. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from committee? Okay, seeing no other questions, can I call for a vote? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is passed. All right. Any other comments from you, Mr. Ramuno?
To you, Mr. Chair, not at this time.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I will hand it back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're under item G, and that's Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services with Councillor Crothers in the chair.
So nothing at this time.
Is there anything from a verbal perspective from staff?
Sorry, did you have, no, there's nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Sorry, anyone on committee have any comments or questions at this time? Seeing none, thank you.
thank you. I would have one quick comment that would be thanks to our staff for being out there in some pretty tough weather. And I'm hearing back from our community that they're very pleased at the service that they're getting. So if you could pass that along to our staff, I'd appreciate that. I know that there's been some long nights and cold hands and feet, and we appreciate what they're doing. Thank you. Okay, we're at item H, and that's Community Parks, Recreation, and Culture with Councillor Persicini in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We only have one item. Community Park Recreation and Culture memo you have before you. And it's regarding the Temple Concept Design Trail from 11 to 12. General Manager Comazon, do you have any comments on this matter?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just briefly, this is a follow-up memo to the parks concept that was presented to council January 8th. As a request by council, it was requested to determine if a trail loop could be provided within the park. We have confirmed a trail loop can be provided with minimal grading, no impact to the natural habitat, and with limited interference with the floodplain that's just adjacent to the creek, in between the trail and the creek. This work can be funded within the strategy presented to council within the financial implications section of the report presented on January 8th. It was also requested that a change be made to the rendering to include lookout points at the truck turn locations. Unfortunately, that was not included with the rendering that was provided back to staff, and staff can confirm that we will give instruction to the landscape architect to adjust the rendering and any future drawings to reflect the lookouts at those locations. I'd be happy to answer any questions related to the memo. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Comazon. Could I have a mover? Moved by Roy Tecumseh. And do you have any questions of members of committees? Councillor Cruthers.
Thank you. Thanks for this updated drawing with the turnarounds. If we are going to ask for any more changes on this, could we have the vehicle turnarounds labeled as maintenance vehicle turnarounds? Because I think this is out there in the public. It looks like those are roadways and not paths. Thanks.
General Manager Comazon, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have noted that. Thank you.
Any more questions from the committee? If there isn't any more questions, I will call a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. General Manager Comazon, do you have anything more to add?
Through you, Mr. Chair, nothing further at this time. Thank you.
Member of the committees? There isn't. If I'll pass it back to the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're at item I, and that's corporate services with Councillor Morton in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have nothing on the agenda today. Mr. Valchich, do you have anything that you want brought forward?
Madam Chair, through you, our primary focus at this point has been to support the Budget Committee in the extensive deliberations that have been undertaken to date, and we are working on bringing a proposal back to the first meeting in February to highlight the latest budget proposal that's coming out of those deliberations. So we'll be bringing that back to you in the next couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valchich, and a very good job that you are doing as well. Do any members of council have any questions for Mr. Valchich? Hearing none, Madam Mayor, I turn the chair back to you.
Thank you very much. We're under item J, emergency and community safety services with Councillor Roy DeClemente in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are no items prepared on our agenda today. Chief Dawson, do you have anything to add at this time?
With thanks and through the chair, yes, I do. Very briefly, emergency services and including the bylaws have been busy. Not surprising with the weather conditions, various types of calls and assisting roads regarding snow removal and snow plowing. So a busy time. I would ask the deputy to step to the mic and just talk very briefly about Good News Story as we were onboarding the latest bunch of new recruits last night, 2-6. He'll give the details about that.
Deputy.
Good afternoon. Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, yesterday evening I was there to witness 18 new firefighting recruits join our ranks. They were a quiet bunch, but I know that they were taking a lot in as I kind of reflected on my first day at a new job that you're quiet, but you've got your eyes and ears open. So they're eager to start. They were excited to get some of their personal equipment. They'll start their training immediately, and we hope to have them response ready by the spring. That's it.
Members of committee, any questions? Councillor Persicini.
Just to verify, I'm sorry, is this part-time?
Yes, these are paid-on-call volunteer ranks.
I was hoping. thinking of the budget. Thank you.
Members of committee, may I have a motion to receive the verbal update from Deputy Jago? Moved by Councillor Persicini. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, and that motion is carried. Thank you, Deputy. Chief, anything else?
With thanks, nothing further.
Members of committee, anything you'd like to raise at this time? Seeing none, I'll turn the chair back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're under item K, administration with myself in the chair. And I'm not sure who is going to take carriage of this. Mr. Webster, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Director Collette is prepared to speak to this report in any manner requested by council.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. What you have before you is what we'll call an annual report establishing our statutory holidays and our holiday closing schedule for 2019. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions of Ms. Collette? Councillor Morton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a question under statutory holidays. When you have Remembrance Day marked as a statutory holiday, Remembrance Day is not a statutory holiday. So I'm just wondering if that perhaps can be corrected in some way. I know that it's used as a float day for the Christmas holidays, but it's just not officially statutory.
I'm wondering if there's a way that we can recognize that it is recognized by us as a very important day while not being statutory in nature.
Thank you. Noted, Madam Mayor. We will make that correction. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Councillor Morton, would you move that report?
I will.
Thank you. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Webster, are there any other items under administration at this time?
Not at this time, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. With that, we will move to item L, and that's legal and council support services with Councillor Foster in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have a few items here today. The first item on the agenda is report LCSS 2019-01, which is council-appointed committees and groups. You'll find that pages 16 to 23. General Manager Horner, any comments?
This report was prepared by the clerk, so I'll ask the clerk to provide some introductory comments for council, please.
Ms. Lamana.
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I'm going to take the podium so that I can talk to all of council. Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, to council members, this is every 4 years when new council is elected, obviously you're establishing advisory committees for the term, which is until 2022, to carry out certain duties and projects that council wishes to direct to the committees. We do have a list of traditional committees that have been around for a number of years, and typically the title of advisory committee has always been attached to all of your committees, and certainly some of the aspects that they carry through aren't entirely advice to council, but certainly carrying out duties such as establishing and setting and running a Santa Claus parade, for instance. So as you can see on table 1, I am proposing to recategorize your advisory committees and drop the title of advisory committees on some committees. There are certain statutory committees that certainly are legislated to maintain. The proposal there is that when I took a look at the statutory committees that you have, realistically, Accessibility Advisory Committee and Appeals Committee We're the only ones that were operating without the assistance of a clerk liaison to take agendas and minutes in that grouping. So we will be moving forward assisting that committee with agendas and minutes through the clerk's office. Moving to advisory committees, and these would, as you can see, a list of them have been provided. These are the list of existing committees. Your active transportation and trails, economic development, environmental and heritage. The process of these committees generally are remaining the same. The practice has been that the volunteer members that are appointed to the committees are then asked to take the minutes and produce the agendas and report through the staff liaison to council. We, as the clerk's office, have established templates for both agendas and minutes and have trained the committee members once they're appointed and assist them throughout their term. For the most part, it's been relatively accepted. Some committee members struggle with producing the agendas and minutes, and understandably, because it's not their general practice. So in the report, we talk about certainly continuing that process again, or if council wished, there would be an opportunity to have possibly an upgraded service through having a clerk's liaison attend those meetings, but that would come with additional budgetary constraints. Then the next group that I'm trying to reclassify is sort of your working groups. These are your groups that are out there providing a service and doing tasks such as your farmer's market and your Santa Claus parade. They have a very focused mandate to provide a service to municipality. So these groups here, council knows exactly what they are doing in terms of their mandate. We're suggesting that there's no formal need for an agendas and minutes, but perhaps in an annual report, these working groups would report to council in terms of what are their successes, what are their stories, and certainly what their financial commitments are. And then finally, the last group is community groups. Your community groups are your outreach groups. Very important, I think, for council to have these groups because they are your connections to each individual organized group out there. Currently, you have your North Union group and your River Drive Park Association, and they both put on certain events like Strawberry Supper and roast beef dinners, etc., and are very successful and important to those hubs in neighborhoods. Again, we're suggesting that there be no formal staff liaison appointed to the committee, and there be no formal agendas or minutes required. But certainly a reporting mechanism back to council, either through the council liaison or a formal written submission to council, just to update in terms of the calendar of events and certainly their function in terms of finances. And with regards to recruitment, we talked to staff liaison that are on the existing advisory committees. We had a lot of great feedback, and we certainly put some notes down within the report. There's some issues with regards to quorum. We've in the past advertised through our social media on the paper. We're suggesting this recruitment this time will continue the original method of outreach, but on Family Day, as you had mentioned earlier, Madam Mayor, it's a very successful day and a lot of folks come out and attend. I think that's a great audience to perhaps get in front of and explain what the committees are. So on Family Day, I am proposing that I will be spending it with my EG family. So the public library has already established a a table out there. The Engage EG group is going to be out there, so I think it's a great opportunity to seek additional recruits for your advisory committees. That is on February 18th. I am hoping, I know timelines are really tight, but I'm hoping to bring back to you on February 5th committee some terms of references for these existing committees that you have. Just get those terms of references refreshed, updated in terms of what council wishes them to conduct in the next 4 years. And then certainly after that recruitment process, we can take a look at the new advisory committees that we were talking about during orientation. So if there's any questions, I'd be certainly here to answer those.
Thank you, Mr. Lamanna. Could I have a mover to receive this report? Councillor Priccini. Are there any questions from committee? Madam Mayor?
Thank you. Just a comment that when you were speaking about taking minutes and lack of minutes and how it really challenged some of our groups to produce them, I think it's important that we now are at a different stage. As long as we have some undertaking on the finances that we provide on where they end up being spent along the way, both from an accounting perspective, but also if they're planning on making changes and growing their events, then at least we would have an idea that we needed to add a little bit more money into the budget for some upcoming events. The whole idea of minutes, over the years that I've watched these committees, they always struggle. If you're taking minutes, you can't participate. And some people take pretty good minutes and other people really, it's not their forte. I'm wondering if when we start to take a look at our engaged EG volunteers, we're building a team of volunteers, perhaps there's some people out there in our community that have been involved in taking minutes. They've been working in an office. They perhaps have had a clerk position or a position where they would have the skill set and be available to volunteer with us once a month for a committee to follow their minutes through for the ones that in fact we're going to need the minutes. So I just plant that seed that I think all of us we've all been tapped already as we're out and about now. People saying, so when are you going to start to advertise for the committees, and are there new ones and whatever? So I think it's an opportunity. If there's somebody that may fit the bill, then we should be welcoming them on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roy DiClemente.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to Mr. Lamanna. Just a couple of adjustments that I'd like to suggest. One would be that I think we had talked about this previously, but it's not referenced in the report, and that is that it's our expectation that the people who are going to be appointed to our committees be, as part of that expectation, that they participate in the Engaged EG training programs, but they attend one of those sessions, and I think it would be important to include that here. The other thing has to do with a couple of these committees, that the role of the council liaison. In most cases, the council liaison is simply there to provide a chain of communication between the committees and to be able to provide context. In a couple of circumstances, with respect to the library board and the current terms of reference for our Trails Committee, both of those council liaisons are considered voting members of the committee, and that's an important distinction to make because it often helps with the committee to understand that. So the library board member is actually the council liaison is actually a voting trustee of the board, and the same thing with our Trails Committee. I should note the Active Transportation and Trails Committee isn't just a committee that's made up of community volunteers, but we have set up, it's a little bit unusual because we've set it up so that it includes staff members from other key stakeholders. So it has York Region Transportation, York Region Public Health, and Conservation Authority salaries. These are employees of those organizations who sit on that advisory committee and advise us on matters related to our master plan implementation. So I think we need to be a little clearer about that, because it doesn't really, it stands out as an advisory committee, but it's a little different there. It's not quite a statutory committee, but it's pretty darn close. So just a couple of thoughts there. Finally, we also, in some of the committees that I've worked with, when we've done recruitment, we've actually sought out somebody when we were doing a recruitment as a recording secretary. So we literally appointed somebody who had an interest in the subject matter, but who was really, their role was essentially to be the recording secretary for the committee, and they take a less active role in the discussion. When it's appropriate, they do participate, but perhaps there could be room made in when we're revising these terms of reference to create that spot from either our pool from engaged EG people, or to simply say one of the roles that we're looking for is not just a chair or a vice chair, but we're also looking for someone to take our minutes who doesn't necessarily want to be involved in the statutory piece of that. And finally, for the working groups, it noted that there's a yearly work plan. For me, it would be almost an annual report on their activities, and that's, we know what their work plan is. They're there to put on an event, and what I'd like to hear is what went well, where their trouble spots are, and that also speaks to their financial request. So we are hearing from these committees, at least on an annual basis, aside from their request to close roads and so on. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments from committee? Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you very much. I really support the idea of having a separate recording secretary position carved out in each of these committees. I think that there's a lot of people in our community who would feel that their skills are well used in doing that, but might not sign up for a committee because they don't feel that they can contribute to economic development or the environment or whatever the committee is. So I would like to see that position, as Councillor Roy DeClemente said, as a separate one in the terms of reference. So even if we don't find someone right at the beginning, once the committee starts, we might be able to fill that position from someone that knows somebody within the committee. I think that's vital. And secondly, as to the resolutions, I know the only resolution that's on the floor right now is to receive the report, but the rest of the recommendations don't make reference to the new committees, and I'm just wondering if there will be a resolution for these new committees today, or if that's something that we're doing down the road.
Mr. Lamont.
Through you, Mr. Chair. In terms of the new committees, we will need a little more time in terms of starting the basis of a terms of reference mandate and bring that back to council. So the existing committees, their bylaws right now for the members are to the end of March 31st or until their successors are appointed. So I think the easiest approach is to deal with those existing committees now. Let's get them up and running, refresh those terms of references right away, and get those appointed. Then we'll move to the new committees and build, like I said, a base terms of reference, and then get your input in terms of exactly what it is that you want those committees to do within the 4 years or shorter. And then we can certainly go out and recruit for those.
Okay, thank you. Would it be in order then to have one of our resolutions be that staff bring back a report on the new committees? I just don't want it to get lost in this. We're talking about the new committees, but there's nothing in the resolution that refers to them.
Certainly, we can add that as an additional recommendation that certainly council directs staff to develop terms of references for the new committees and report back further.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Councillor Crone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You may have just answered this through you to Mr. Lamanna, particularly with the new committees, and I'm thinking specifically of the broadband Advisory Committee. I think we've had some discussion back and forth. I don't know where we've landed, but from your previous comments, it's still in flux. I wasn't sure whether we were going to make it its own committee or a subcommittee of economic development, because I know EDAC has done some work on broadband. So I just throw that out there, that we have a conversation about that as we go along to decide just exactly what we want to do with broadband. But I am delighted to see that we have that committee. Thank you very much.
Mr. Lamona?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that certainly was my intent, Councillor, is that when we come back, prior to coming back with the suggested base terms of reference for the new committees, I would definitely reach out to each individual council member to get a flavor of what their expectations are. And that was part of my work process.
Thank you. Any further questions, Madam Mayor?
I'm just wondering if it would be possible that for these new committees and groups, we all had ideas of them coming forth, that we take one of our workshop days and plan a morning to go through each one of them and have a better understanding from individuals on what their suggestion was and how they had seen it moving forward.
Talk about the new committees.
I think we normally have a workshop day between our two committee of the whole and council meetings, so it would be the second Tuesday of the month, and I'm not sure what we have planned for those other dates now. We may have some other initiatives going forward, but I think it's a wonderful opportunity for everybody to share exactly what their thoughts were in putting these on paper.
Any further questions? Councillor Roy DeClemente.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Lamanna, is it your intent when you do the recruitment at Family Day to also advertise for the new committees, or is it just for the committees listed on the chart in the report?
Mr. Lamona?
On Table 1.
Through you, Mr. Chair, our intent for Family Day was to recruit for the existing committees. We would certainly be there to talk about the new committees that council had discussed at orientation and today. But my intent was to recruit for the existing committees, get them set up and organized by the end of March, and then move forward with the new committees following that in Q2 or Q3.
Mr. Chair, with respect, I would hate to lose the opportunity of several hundred people being exposed to a new committee that we may want to recruit them for, and so I might encourage, if it's possible, to advertise for these new committees. There's a list of new committees as listed in the report. Terms of reference are being recruited. Please give us your expression of interest, and we can obviously work with those people once the terms of reference are established and close that loop with them. I would hate to lose out on that just because it's a new committee and the terms of reference haven't yet been developed. If I may make that suggestion, Mr. Chair. As far as what we want to do with this report, I heard that Councillor Carruthers wanted to amend it to make sure that we were directing staff to do terms of reference for new and existing committees and report back. I've also made some suggestions here that I'd like to see enshrined into this next process. I'm wondering if it might be appropriate for us to receive the report that directs staff to undertake the recruitment, because I believe that's probably why there's a recommendation to ratify. That we receive the report, that staff be directed to undertake recruitment activities at Family Day for the entire list of the advisory committees, and that staff be directed to report back further based on the discussion today, and then have that piece be ratified later today. It's just trying to make sure that we get the changes that we'd like to see made, that we get the work done on the terms of reference, and that we're not closing any doors, and that we're moving forward on this.
Noted. Any further questions? Okay, so we have a few comments and adjustments that have been noted. We are going to add the amendment about the Family Day recruitment, and then we'll have that reported back to us today, Mr. Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to Councillor Roy DiClemente, so you're suggesting recommendation 1, the terms of reference and recruitment for existing committees, and then that those recommendations be ratified today? Is that what I understand?
It's not my motion, so it's just a suggestion, and it's up to the person who's made the motion, but my suggestion was that we receive, that we approve, and that we direct staff to undertake recruitment at Family Day, and request that they revise the terms of reference and mandates for new and existing committees, and report back based on the conversation here in the chambers, and that we ratify that later today so that you have direction to participate in Family Day. That was my suggestion, but it's not my motion.
Ms. Lamana?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is understood, and certainly, my apologies, I didn't write down who the mover was. Chair, did you get that?
Councillor Percicini, I believe. Oh.
No move.
Yeah, I don't think it was a motion.
Just a point of order. The only motion that was moved was receipt. And also, once motion's on the floor, it does no longer belongs to the mover, it belongs to the committee as a whole. So it's not up to the mover to decide whether they want to change it up to the entire group, decide if they want to have it amended or not.
Mr. Lamana, we're okay with that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, certainly the motion to receive is by Councillor Crothers.
No, Percicini.
I didn't hear that it was just receipt.
That's what the chair asked for. He asked for someone to move receipt, and Councillor Percicini agreed.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe generally in committee, the recommendations of the report are what the resolutions are. So for clarification, it's recommendations 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as listed on the screen. Councillor Roy DiClemente had some amendments to that, which we have noted.
Are we good to go? Any further questions?
So what I'm going to suggest then is that I make a motion to amend the original resolution, and we can vote on that, and then we can vote on the second piece. We have 2 votes.
Ms. Lamana?
Certainly, thank you.
Okay, so we can, if there's no further questions, we'll vote on the amendment. All in favor? None opposed, that'll be carried. So then we can go ahead and vote on the original motion.
That is correct, Mr. Chair. As
All
amended.
opposed?
As amended.
As amended, yes. All in favor?
And the mover to that is Councillor Percicini.
Right. And none opposed, so that's carried. Okay. Second item on the agenda is a memo entitled Council Code of Conduct. That'll be pages 24 to 46, I believe. Can I have a mover for that? Councillor Percicini. General Manager Horner, any comments?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to this report. This proposed code of conduct is really a work in progress. Council's required by the Municipal Act to have a code of conduct in place for March 1 of this year. We had comments on an earlier draft from the prior council, and we've done our best to incorporate these, and we've tried to make the changes clear to council by attaching a red line to the report, so you can see precisely, what we've done. And I think frankly, I mean, the quest is really for a perfect code of conduct. I don't expect that we'll get there. What I do hope is that we'll have a code of conduct adopted for March 1, and then we'll certainly be free to amend that if we find that the code doesn't meet the purpose, or we have a matter that we've identified that isn't properly addressed. So it's a start. It will be a start, but we haven't had the benefit of comments from this particular council, and so I certainly welcome those, and would be free to meet with each and every member of council to take those comments directly and produce a revised draft. But really, in terms of what we're required to produce, the Act says that we need a code of conduct that deals with gifts, benefits, and hospitality, deals with respectful conduct towards officers and employees of the municipality, confidential information, and then use of town property. So those are kind of the mandatories in the policy. But by way of introduction, those were the comments that I had, and very pleased to continue to work with this new council and see if we can't put the best code forward that we can. So happy to take any questions from council.
Thank you. Any questions from committee? I'm surprised, seeing none. We can call for a vote. All those in favor? Oh, I had a mover of Joe, right. So we can call for the vote. All those in favor? And none opposed? That'll be carried. Third item on our agenda, memo entitled Permission to Enter Agreements. That is page 47 to 49. Can I have a mover for that? Roy D. Clemente. General Manager Horner, any comments?
Just to briefly say that this is almost like a bit of a tidy up. The region has a couple of monitoring wells on town property, and the purpose of these permissions to enter will be to formally arrange the access arrangement to permit the town to, not the town, excuse me, but the region to access these wells and draw the test samples.
Thank you. Any comments from committee? Seeing none, then we can call for a vote. All those in favor? And none opposed? That will be carried. Any other questions from members of the committee for legal and counsel support services at this time? And Mr. Horner, any further updates?
Nothing to advise at this time. Thank you. Oh, excuse me, the clerk's got his hand up.
Mr. Lamanna?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, just to wanted to present committee my apologies for not including it on the agenda. Timing-wise, didn't persist with Budget Committee. However, this memorandum is a two-page memorandum. It's just wraps up the accessibility reporting in terms of the Municipal Elections Act requirements. It's really a good news story. The election was run in a fair and accessible manner, and everything that during operations of the election set up and election day ran smoothly, and happy to report that staff have no issues. So if we can move to receive, staff will include this on the public agenda and also share it with the Accessibility Advisory Committee and post it on our election website.
Going to have a mover to receive, Councillor Crone. Any further comments? Councillor Roy DiClemente?
I'm not sure about our 90 days, but it says that it requires that the clerk submit it to council. So while it's been submitted to committee, does it also need to be ratified so we can receive it later today? I'm not sure if we have a 90-day window to do so.
Mr. Lamont?
Certainly, that would be helpful. Thank you.
We can take a vote to receive, and then we'll get that in council. All those in favor? And none opposed, that'll be carried. And I believe I can pass it back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We have completed our agenda. I just would ask if there's any other business at this time. Mr. Webster.
There is other business, Madam Mayor. Apart from our council being very involved in extensive budget discussions currently, we do have a council workshop. Our first one is booked for February 12th. And we already have pre-populated it with some items, so I just want to remind council and the public of what that workshop entails. So that's the Tuesday in between our normal sessions, and we generally try to have plus or minus 6 of these in a year. I think that we have that scheduled for this year as well. The first item we would like to talk to council about is a growth management update. So it'd be a comprehensive update by all departments, and we'll have each GM and their management teams do a presentation of what's relevant in their area, and I think it'll be a really good education session for all. That is proposed to occur in a 10 to 12 o'clock time slot, so about a 2-hour time slot. We would propose there be a recess, and then in the afternoon there would be 2 approximately 1-hour sessions. One would be dealing with the Integrity Commissioner, and we think that it's important that the public understand the role of the Integrity Commissioner. And so it'd be for a brief update and introduction of the Integrity Commissioner, potential for a little Q&A with council in full public session. And secondly, the topic would be the strategic plan, where we did make some initial steps in with a staff team led initiative with council at the orientation. There's been some continued dialogue, and there's going to be some outreach, and there's ongoing outreach to the public and consultation. So we think it would be timely to bring back an update to council on the 12th on the strategic plan as well.
Any questions on that agenda? Proposed agenda? Sounds like it's going to be a full day. Mr. Lavanna.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just to also further clarify that Integrity Commissioner will also be, as council had directed at the orientation sessions, he was asked to review our draft code. So the draft code that's being presented to you today, he should be coming on the 12th with some suggestions, and certainly a discussion with council would be relevant at that time.
Very good. Any questions? Thank you very much. Is there anything else in other business at this time? Seeing none, I have a motion to adjourn. Councillor Crone at 1:55. All those in favor? That's carried, and we're back here at 7 p.m. tonight for a statutory meeting. And